guy Patmore is quoted in. This is, I don't know if it's a poem or what it is. It's quoted in Evelyn Underhill's, seems to have a big role in Underhill's mysticism. Here's a aura. It's called the root, the rod, the root, and the flower. Aurea Dicta. We don't know what it's about, but we're going to do an investigation. If you wish to influence the world for good, leave it, forget it, and think of nothing but your own interest. That's pretty intense. Is that the supreme example of selfishness? Says to be extremely selfish. He must have very little spirit, says Saint Bernard, who thinks that a spirit is nothing. Number 3, God says, a great philosopher Proclus, if I remember rightly, is not infinite, but the synthesis of infinite and boundary. How is that? God says, a great philosopher Proclus. If I remember rightly, is not infinite, but the synthesis of infinite and boundary. How is that?
Proclus is, we read together Proclus?
I know Proclus. You know Proclus.
Yeah, did we read together? I love Proclus.
All reasoning ends in an appeal to self-evidence.
He's very spiritual.
Yeah, self-evidence. Of course, she believes that as mysticism is self-evident reality.
Yeah.
Number 5, that which is absolutely simple. Wow, this is heavy stuff. Absolutely simple, the life, which is the root of absurd of all, must be literally absurd. Absurd. Is a root surd? Of all must be literally absurd. Let us concede this point to the scientist. If you try to simplify or pare off the superfluous from the minds and the speech of most men, you will find that nothing is left. There is no simplicity in them, for there is no truth. Truth and simplicity being, as Aquinas says, the same thing. You think truth and simplicity are the same thing? He who meditates night and day upon the law of the Lord shall yield his fruit in due season. Heaven, earth, and sea, and hell witness with 1,000 voices the secret which is the sole felicity of man, and almost all men refuse to hear.
Which is what? The of man?
What?
Which is the of man?
Heaven, earth, sea, and hell witness with 1,000 voices the secret which is the sole felicity of man, and almost all men refuse to hear.
The self-felicity.
Searchers of majesty shall be overwhelmed with the glory, blissfully overwhelmed, ruined for this world, yet even in this rich beyond thought, happy searchers, consumed by the thunder of divine instructions and the lightning of divine perceptions, but pursuing it as a new creature in the very flesh of her destroyer. With unscaled eyeballs I held the rod, and with the garden walked again with God. So I guess he's a bit of a poet, says Browning, actually. Sounds Browning's a poet. With unscaled eyeballs I beheld the rod, and with the gardens walked again with God. Says Browning, let him whose eyes have seen thus opened beware, for none is ever restored to paradise a second time. When a thing manifestly is, none but fools will trouble themselves with difficulties as to how it can be. And yet who is not more or less a fool? Who dares to believe his own eyes? The spirit of man is like a kite, which rises means of those very forces which seem to oppose its rise. The tie that joins it to the earth, the opposing winds of temptation, and the weight, sick, birth-born affections which it carries with it into the sky. Lovers put out the candles and draw the curtains when they wish to seek the god and the goddess. And in the higher communion, the night of thought is the light of perception. Greatly to live is such a burden of joy that its sharpest pain of sacrifice is a welcome easement of it. Consummation est, the cross is only a mitigation of the consummation. Hate pleasure, if only because this is the only means of obtaining it. Reject the foul smoke, and it will be forced back on you as pure flame. But this you cannot believe until you shall have rejected it without thought of reward. This is a funny book, huh? We're reading the rod, the root, and the flower. Great is his faith who dares believe his own eyes. Nature fulfilled by grace is not less natural, but is supernaturally natural. The promises of the devil are kept to the letter and broken in the spirit. God's promises are commonly broken to the letter and fulfilled past all hope to the spirit. Man looking on that which is below him is an image of God and knows not but that he is God. But looking upwards he becomes a likeness of God, as the sheath is the likeness of the sword. There are not two sides to any question that really concerns a man, but only one, and this side only a fool can fail to see if he tries. No writer, sacred or profound, ever uses the words he or him of the soul. It is always she or her. So universal is the intuitive knowledge that the soul, with regard to God, who is her, life is feminine. Is the soul feminine? Science is a line, art a superficies. And life, or the knowledge of God, is solid. Is science a line and art a superficie? And life, the knowledge of God, is solid. The tree of knowledge is become to the chosen the tree of life. Under the tree where the mother was debauched, I have redeemed thee. Rhea, the earth, was the mother of the gods, and it is only by inspired knowledge of our own nature, or earth, which is seen, that we can know anything of the divine, which is unseen. The natural first, afterwards the supernatural. No great art, no really effective ethical teaching can come from any but such as know unmeasurably more than they who will attempt to communicate. No great art, no really effective ethical teaching can come from any but such as know immeasurably more than they can attempt to communicate. We often mistake our own sweet childhood for the old time, which had we lived in it, we should have found almost as intolerable as our own. The world has always been the dunghill it is now, and it only exists to nourish here and there the fruits of some rare, unknown, and immortal flower of individual humanity. Do the right, and God will enable you to do it rightly. So give me to possess this mystery that I shall not desire to understand it. Our thoughts and feelings are modifications of our spiritual substance, and the soul, as a phonograph, retains them all forever, to lie tacit or to be summoned at need. Ask abundantly, for the measure of your asking shall be that of your receiving. If you ask abundantly, will you receive abundantly? As an instant of pure love is more precious to God and the soul, and more profitable to the church than all other good works together, though it may seem as if nothing were done. St. John of the Cross, he quoted him. God loves a soul which desires perfection, as a lover always does. That is, as if she were already perfect. The fact creates what apprehended a far more vehement desire to become perfect than if perfection were the price of such love in the future. What you do not understand with submission, wait for, and what you do understand, hold fast with charity. St. Augustine. Quote, when Tobias and exhorted the Virgin and said to her, for these 3 nights we are joined to God, and when the third night is over, we will be our own wedlock. I don't know if I understand these. God sets the soul long, weary, impossible task, yet is satisfied with the first sincere proof that obedience is intended, and takes the burden away forthwith. Should ye not watch with me 1 hour? None attains the promised land except those little ones who ye said should be a prey. The perception attained in and preserved from childhood and youth, which the tempter is always endeavoring to destroy. To some there is revealed a sacrament greater than that of the fair presence, a sacrament of the manifest presence, which is and is more than the sum of all the sacraments. The Catholic Church alone teaches as matters of faith those things which the thoroughly sincere person of every sect discovers more or less and obscurely for himself, but does not believe for want of external sanction. I don't know what do we get out of this and who it is that wrote it. We know nothing about it. His specialty is not knowing anything. The rod, the root, and the flower. We come to section number 39. If we may credit certain hints contained in the lives of the saints, love raises the spirit above the sphere of reverence, and worship into one of laughter and dalliance, the spirit in which the soul says, shall I, the gnat which dances in thy ray, dare to be reverent? We're stopping at number Aurea Dicta, numero 39.